Hi there, and welcome to episode 113. It's the first episode of the new year, so happy new year to you all. And in this episode, I'm answering your questions. I'm going to cover topics like Ayurvedic food, intermittent fasting, overeating, and exercising, along with lots more. So please stay tuned. Hello and welcome to Elements of Ayurveda, Empowering Wisdom of Life. I'm your host, Colette, and in this podcast, I hope to empower you to take charge of your own health by sharing the holistic teachings of Ayurveda, the ancient healing tradition from India. We will also discuss topics like health and wellness, nutrition, yoga, fitness, meditation, breath work, and much more, as well as interviewing lots of inspiring people along the way. My humble wish is to help you to connect to your true nature, to Mother Nature, and to each other. If you like the content, be sure to subscribe to the show, and the new episodes will automatically download for you to enjoy. If you're new to Ayurveda, I recommend you listen to the first couple of episodes where I do an introduction to Ayurveda and the mind-body types. I've also set up a Facebook group for us to connect and to support each other, and I'd love for you to join me over at Elements of Ayurveda podcast group. And now, here's the show. Hello. Welcome to the first episode for 2020. I hope you all had a wonderful holiday season, and now it's exciting to start into a new year and a new decade. And I thought this is a good opportunity to take your questions. I've gathered questions that I've received in the podcast Facebook group, and I'm also answering some questions I've received by email. So we're going to cover several topics, like I mentioned in the intro. And we're going to start with a question from Amanda. And Amanda asks about tailoring food to fit Ayurveda. So foods such as Mexican and Italian, etc., she says. Okay, Amanda, well, thanks a million for your question. And the first thing I want to do is clarify here for everybody that there is no such thing as Ayurvedic food or Ayurvedic cuisine. Yes, Indian food uses a lot of the healing spices which Ayurveda recommends, and Ayurveda comes from India, but Indian food is not Ayurvedic. So whether you're eating Mexican, Italian, Asian food, it's not the dish or the type of food, but the ingredients in the food that you're eating that you should be taking note of, especially if you have a current imbalance or aggravation of the doshas. So when your body and mind is in balance, when you're feeling good and you're feeling balanced, I believe that you can enjoy all foods in moderation. However, the key is to understand your signs of imbalance or your signs of aggravation for your unique mind-body type. Now, two people with the same dominant dosha may not experience the same signs of aggravation. So once you're educated on what your signs of imbalance or aggravation are for your unique mind-body type, then you can become more aware and choose your foods accordingly. Now, today I have prepared a special download for you, and this download will give you details on the general signs of aggravation for each dosha. So again, it's general signs for each dosha, and in order to get what's specific to you, I would recommend a consultation. But that download is available to you. So just click on the link in the show notes or go to my website, elementshealingandwellbeing.com. Go to the resources section and find the freebies in the drop down box and just go to episode 113 and you'll find that download there. So this is the most important information that you can know about yourself. Yes, it's good to know your constitution, your birth constitution, but we tend to get caught up with that. So what you really need to be aware of is checking in with yourself all the time. Do I have a current imbalance? Is my body talking to me in some way, telling me that something's out of balance? And therefore, if it is, how do I adjust my food and my lifestyle and so on in order to bring my body back into balance so that that aggravation doesn't manifest into something bigger down the road. So check out that download. It's a questionnaire from my website, and review it. And then if you want more clarity and detailed information, I recommend you book an online consult. But I do want to give you today, Amanda, an example for each dosha of what to avoid when ordering off a menu. So I'm going to talk about when each dosha is aggravated, and then this is what you avoid on menus. So we'll start with Vata aggravation. So if you have a current Vata aggravation, I would avoid anything raw, cold, dry, or light. Light things will be like sprouts and salads and so on. And I would also avoid beans, cruciferous vegetables, overly spiced foods, and carbonated drinks. Instead, I would recommend that you go for cooked foods which are rich in protein, have good fats in them, and are seasoned with warming, but not pungent spices, warming spices. So that would be spices like cumin and cinnamon and mustard seeds. You don't want anything that's too pungent. You don't want anything like cayenne pepper or anything like that. That would be just too much. Choosing dishes that are soft or mushy in texture, that have lots of moisture or liquid in them, like mashed potatoes and pasta and stews and soups of grains and root vegetables. These comfort foods are perfect for Vata, as they really have grounding qualities and, of course, lots of moisture to balance out that dryness that Vata gets when it's aggravated. So that's my suggestions for Vata aggravation. Now, if you have a current Pitta aggravation, I would avoid anything on the menu that's spicy, oily, salty, or sour. You mentioned, Amanda, Mexican food. You can see that a lot of Mexican food may be aggravating for Pitta. So I would just choose non-spicy dishes. That would be best. And avoiding nightshades like tomatoes, eggplant, peppers, and white potatoes. And avoiding red meats as well, because that can be aggravating for Pitta. Choose dishes that are mostly vegetarian and whole foods that are high in carbohydrates in order to satisfy the Pitta's strong digestive fire. There are some tips for when you're out and ordering different types of food if you have a Pitta aggravation. And then finally, we'll talk about the Kapha aggravation. So if you have a Kapha aggravation, I would avoid anything that's cold, raw, oily, heavy, rich, anything that has a dairy in it, or red meats. So less heavy dishes, less pasta, less rice, less pizza, less comfort foods in general. So any of those comfort foods that have lots of cheeses and dairy and creams in them, a creamy sauce over pasta, they are best to be avoided if you have a Kapha aggravation. What I would recommend that you choose if you have a Kapha aggravation is warm, freshly cooked dishes that are spiced. So Kapha can have all the spices. In fact, the majority of spices are mostly warming to the body. So that will really help to warm up that cold Kapha constitution, but also to liquefy any congestion in the body. And also foods that are lighter are best for Kapha. So things, especially in the evening, if you're going to have for dinner, like soups and veggies, and sauteed veggies and so on, with less oil, less grains. So you definitely want to keep it lighter in the evening meal. So I hope that helps, Amanda. But also I just want you to remember that, and for everyone to remember that, Ayurveda does not recommend eating a certain type of diet for your mind-body type. And in fact, there are no restrictions when you are in balance. And I really recommend, in general, when you're in balance and you feel good, you're not noticing any signs of aggravation in your body, that you've heard me say this before, you follow the soul food diet, seasonal, organic, unprocessed, and local as much as you can, and follow a 80-20 lifestyle. 80% of the time, you're living in accordance to the Ayurvedic lifestyle, you're following the circadian rhythms and so on. And 20% of the time you're going out for a night out. You maybe stay out later, or you maybe order food that, it's not perfect for your constitution. It's okay. We have to be flexible. We have to get let loose. We can't have that rigidity that causes stress. So that's my recommendations. And please remember that Ayurveda is not a diet. It's not restrictive. Ayurveda helps us to understand our mind-body type so that we can prevent imbalances or aggravation of the doshas, which can lead to illness and disease if it continues further into the tissues. But it's really about enjoying all types of foods and really thriving in life. And again, Ayurveda, it's a manual to live by. It's not restrictive. It's not, meant to be very rigid. I think sometimes in the West, we want things to be challenging and hard because then we believe we're going to get results. So a lot of these fad diets out there, they're very restrictive and can be challenging to follow. And you really have to make a lot of adjustments in your life. But with Ayurveda, it's not about cleaning out the cupboards and starting over and being very restrictive or buying certain foods. It's just understanding your mind-body type, and in particular, checking in with yourself daily and seeing, is there anything going on in your body? Is your body talking to you? Do you have a headache? Do you have constipation? Do you have diarrhea? Do you have excessive gas or bloating? Do you have sinus congestion? What is your body saying to you? And then what do you need to bring in order to bring your body back into balance and get rid of that aggravation of the dosha? Okay, so I hope that helps. In general, follow a soul food diet and an 80-20 lifestyle. But I think it's really good to get the education around what are your signs of imbalance, because in my experience, everyone has their tendency to what their signs of imbalance are. Like I know if my pitta is aggravated, I might get a little redness in the corner of my eye. And that's a sign that my pitta is getting a little aggravated. And then my cough, I might feel is aggravated. I might feel a little bit more congestion in my sinuses or something like that. So it's good to know where your tendencies are to feel those signs of aggravation and those really early signs of aggravation. So you can catch it straight away by just adjusting food, lifestyle, and so on. And then you can bring your body back into balance and continue on as normal. So you're not taken out of life for a few days until you recover from this aggravation. It's really simple. You do a check in the morning. What's going on? How am I feeling today? What do I need in my body and in my mind? And what can I eat today? What mindfulness practices can I do? How can I schedule my day so that I can make sure that I'm in balance? And I think that's a good way to live. And don't forget to check out that download, which lists the general types of aggravation for each dosha. And this will give you a good idea of what to look for your constitution. And again, you can find the link in the show notes or just go to my website, elementshealingandwellbeing.com. Go to the resources section. You'll find the freebies in the drop-down box and just go to episode 113. Okay, Amanda, thanks a million for your question, and I hope that helps you out. Okay, next question is from Rachel. And Rachel asked about intermittent fasting according to Ayurveda. So intermittent fasting, all the rage right now. And Ayurveda really had intermittent fasting as part of its recommendations way back thousands of years ago. So Ayurveda recommends that we stop eating after our dinner, which is ideally around 7 p.m., and that you go without food for at least 12 hours. And I think this is good for every dosha type, and it allows your body to rest and digest in the evening. And then the body has all the energy it needs between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. when pitta comes in to digest and transform and detox and rejuvenate our body for the next day. Now, intermittent fasting tends to go but for longer periods of time, anywhere from about 12 to 16 hours, and the hours are determined by each individual. So people tend to choose that window of time depending on their lifestyle and so on. So, for example, if you had dinner at 7 p.m. and you're fasting for 16 hours, then you wouldn't eat until 11 a.m. the next day. Now, for other people, they may fast for 1 day per week. So they just take a whole day where they don't eat. Whatever the schedule is, it really comes down to that Ayurvedic motto of there's no one size fits all. So I'm going to go through the doshas now and let you know what I think of intermittent fasting for each dosha. So who is it perfect for? Well, it's perfect for people with a high kapha constitution, because people with a kapha constitution can easily go for long periods of time without food because they have a slower digestion. Their digestive fire tends to be lower, so it takes them a long time to process food. So they tend not to get very hungry. And fasting like this can be really great for their sluggish digestive system. It can create more energy in their body as well, this fasting. And it really is an ideal lifestyle for kapha who's not generally hungry for breakfast either. So for kapha, I would suggest stopping eating by 6 p.m. before that kapha energy rises at 6 p.m., right? So from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m., kapha energy rises. So if you could be finished eating before that, that would be ideal. And then don't eat anything until you feel the real signs of hunger the next day. And this could be closer to lunchtime before you feel those signs of hunger, which is often the case with many people with a high kapha constitution. However, when kapha is aggravated, there is a tendency for kapha to have an attachment to eating, particularly comfort foods, and there can be emotional eating as well. And so this can cause a negative reaction or a resistance to doing intermittent fasting. Now, if you feel that you're kapha aggravated and you know this will be good for you, but you can feel that resistance because you have such an attachment to food and you really enjoy food, which is very normal for a person with high kapha constitution, I feel the best way to progress would be to start your journey with support. And I would recommend probably a total reset, like with a cleanse or something like that. And this will hit the reset button. This will stimulate your digestive fire, getting that sluggish digestion moving and a little bit more efficiently. And this will also hit the reset button on any of those poor habits. And you could start during a cleanse like this, begin to address those emotions that may be resulting in this attachment to food. And then once the cleanse is completed, you could implement an intermittent fasting schedule like I just mentioned. And this will be fantastic for a kapha constitution for their long-term health and well-being. So knowing that by 6 p.m. they stop eating and they don't eat until they feel hungry the next day, that's really good for kapha because you're giving your body just time to rest and digest. The reason kapha tends not to feel hungry in the morning and can easily go without breakfast, which is unimaginable, for example, a pitta constitution, is because they haven't fully digested their meal from the evening before. So their body's just not ready to take in food. So I always recommend for kapha, if you're not hungry, don't eat. But the problem tends to be that when kapha is aggravated, there is an attachment to food, there can be emotional eating, and they tend to just love food and like to graze all the time. So there isn't even that awareness of, well, what is real hunger? And this is, again, when I have people going through my cleanse, especially if they have kapha aggravation, I really focus on them tuning into that sign of real hunger and really getting in tune with their body and so on, because that's really important long term for them. Okay, so now let's move on to pitta. So those people with a high pitta constitution would generally love the challenge and discipline of a fast. However, it could result in an imbalance as it can increase the digestive fire, and because pitta already has a strong digestive fire, it could be too much. So therefore, this increase can cause pitta to burn a little too hot and then become aggravated and frustrated and irritable and in general just not nice to be around, and they'll just be frustrated with themselves. So I would recommend a shorter fasting period for pitta. Like we recommend in Ayurveda is perfect, 12 hours without food. So for example, from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. will be ideal for the pitta constitution. So intermittent fasting is good, but again, we're just adjusting it for each dosha type. So for pitta, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. And then finally, for those with a high Vata constitution or a Vata Pitta constitution, I would not recommend fasting. These people usually tend to have a low body weight and really can't afford to be losing body mass. So it's best to have regular meals and give yourself the 12-hour break from eating that Ayurveda recommends. Fasting for a high Vata constitution could result in anxiety, nervous energy, feeling ungrounded and feeling disconnected. So it really is not good for a Vata constitution to fast for long periods of time. So there you go, Rachel. I hope that answers your question. And just to recap, in general, Ayurveda does recommend fasting, and it's from around 12 hours from the latest 7 p.m. till maybe 7 a.m. the next morning. It's great for the Kapha dosha, go as long as they want until they feel the real signs of hunger. And in general, the Pitta person will wake up hungry, so will need to eat. And the Vata person needs to have a regular schedule of meals, so having breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And it's not good for them to skip meals. So 12 hours is sufficient for Pitta and Vata, and whatever length of time Kapha wants to do it, it can be great for their sluggish digestive system and can actually give them more energy. So I hope that helps. Anytime we give the digestion a rest is great, of course, and that's why Ayurveda recommends that rest overnight so that the body can do all the rest of the recovery and detox to get you ready for the next day. And as you know, in Ayurveda, we recommend Ayurvedic cleanses on a regular basis. And I think this time of the year, after we've just come through the holiday season now in January, you may be feeling heavy and foggy-minded, and we've eaten a lot of rich foods over the holidays. So it can really be a great time to give your digestive system a break. And of course, in Ayurveda, we recommend that through cleansing. Ayurvedic cleanses are all about rejuvenation. They're not like this harsh detox. In the cleanses I do, it's tailored to each person. So the foods and the timings and how much food you get is tailored to each person's needs. And that's really important, again, not to have that one size fits all, because each person is so unique. So I do recommend taking the time out to, especially this time of the year, just to eliminate the toxins that may have built up in the body. The digestion often gets affected over the holiday season because of all the heavy foods, maybe extra alcohol, and in general we tend to get out of our normal schedules, so everything's a little bit off. And if you're interested in giving your digestive system a reset, which results in a reset for the body and mind, I do have a group online discounted Digestive Reset Cleanse coming up. It's starting January 24th. I'll put a link in the show notes, or visit my website, elementshealingandwellbeing.com. And just go to the events and you'll see that Digestive Reset Cleanse there. And I actually have a competition as well. So I'm going to give away a free entry into the cleanse. So please check out that link in the show notes. You'll also see that in the events tab. I'll have a competition tab there in the drop down box. So you can just go visit there and put your entry in to win a free place in that Digestive Reset Cleanse, but a really good thing to do at this time of year. So check out the show notes for those details, or visit the website. And now I'm going to move on to the next question. And this question is from Jen, who says, overeating as a Vata, especially at dinner time. Thank you, Jen, for your question. And overeating can certainly be an issue for many people. And Ayurveda recommends a portion size. And the recommendation is basically what you can fit in your two hands cupped together. You know, when we think of overeating, there can be many reasons for it. It can be emotional. It can be poor food, so you're just not getting satiated from the food. And it could be lifestyle choices. In your case, Jen, you say that you're primarily a Vata constitution. And what I have found with those people who have an aggravated Vata dosha, there is a tendency to use food to try and ground themselves, and this can lead to overeating. Sometimes when Vata is aggravated, there's a tendency to be on the move all day, maybe miss meals or even forget to eat and just grab things on the go. And this can cause Vata to become aggravated, which then can result in anxiety. And then at the end of the day, maybe if you run around all day, you haven't eaten much and you're feeling anxious, and then you're overeating in order to try calm that nervous system down. Or there can be a tendency to overeat between the hours of 2 and 6 p.m. when the Vata energy rises. So again, this can be a time that maybe if you didn't eat a substantial enough lunch, or lunch that really satiated you, maybe if you just grabbed something quick and it wasn't, not enough good fats in there and so on to keep you full for a long period of time, then you might get hungry between 2 and 6 p.m. and the Vata may become aggravated, and again causing anxiety, mind spinning, hyperactivity, and all a result of the excess movement of the Vata energy in the body. So again, this may lead to overeating because you get to a point where you're hungry, you want to try calm that anxiety, maybe you've had lots of caffeine that day, and so there can be a tendency to overeat. So we need to not only look at the types of food you're eating, Jen, but also what time you're eating and what your daily routine looks like in order to prevent this overeating. So here are some tips that I recommend following if you have a high Vata constitution and you're in the situation similar to Jen where she's especially overeating at dinner time. So the first thing is to eat regular meals. Try to be consistent each day and that contain good fats, proteins, and carbs, and that are warm. So warm dishes are really important, easier to digest. It's really important for Vata to eat meals in a calm, quiet environment with little sensory stimulation. So don't be at your computer, no reading, no watching TV. Just focus on the food, take your time to eat, and try avoid talking or any other activity. Just try to just focus on the food and not eating too fast, just taking your time, taking a bite and chewing several times before you take your next bite. So make sure that there's not that taking in a lot of air into the body because you're gulping down food really fast. And then after eating, I highly recommend sitting for about 10 to 15 minutes just to allow the food to digest a little bit. So when you're sitting there, maybe just focusing on your breath or doing a little meditation is great. And that can really help with the digestion process and really help alleviate any of this bloating or excessive gas, which Vata can tend to experience if they're aggravated. Prepare your meals in advance or have snacks ready so that you're not left scrambling trying to find food and just resorting then to buying some fast food or processed food. So really prepare your meals in advance. Very important for Vata to have that set. And finally, is your daily schedule Vata aggravating? And how can you set up your day so that you are more calm and grounded and not resorting to food for grounding, which I spoke about earlier. So something that I could help you with is I have the Daily Habits for Holistic Health course. It's an online 28-day course that's self-paced. And this course, I educate you on how to set up your day so you're living in tune with the circadian rhythms. And I also help you implement a new operating system to help keep you grounded and calm and clear. And again, it's self-paced, so you can do this privately at any time. But I also have a group discounted course coming up, and that's going to start February 21st. So again, I'll put the link in the show notes so you can check out my website under events for that group discounted course. And while I'm talking about what's coming up, I also want to let you know about my upcoming discounted group Reset, Restore, Renew program. And that starts the same day as the cleanse on January 24th. Now, this program includes all my programs. So this program, which is a 7-week program, includes the 90-minute in-depth Ayurvedic online consultation, 21-day Digestive Reset Cleanse. Midpoint, we have an online check-in. It's going to be 30 minutes. Then you go straight into the 28-day Daily Habits for a Holistic Health course. And then at the end of all that, there's a 60-minute online follow-up conversation with me. So we talk about your progress and then what to do going forward. At the end of that program, you will have implemented lots of daily self-care practices. You'll have received a lot of education around your mind body type, around the mental gunas, around the healing foundations from Ayurveda. So you should be well educated on how to take care of yourself going forward, which is my goal for each person going through that course. So again, that's a 7-week online package, and I open it up once a year in the group discounted format, and it only happens in January that this 7-week program is discounted. The rest of the year it's available privately. So if you want to take advantage of this once a year discount on this 7-week program, click on the link in the show notes or visit my website, and then just go under the events tab and you'll find it there. So that's everything in one package. You come out the end of that 7-week program and you feel empowered. Not only do you have, clear mind, your digestion is working efficiently, but you also feel confident to take care of yourself going forward. Okay, so now that you're all up to date on my group discounted programs that are happening in January and February, I want to go on to the next question. And the next question comes from Fiona, and she says, I want to know more about exercising for my body type. Okay, great question, Fiona. Thank you. And especially, of course, this time of year, as a lot of people are making their New Year's resolutions. And oftentimes we tend to follow the trends or what everyone else is doing at the gym. But we need to remember there's no one size fits all. And in fact, in a recent episode it was episode, I think 110. It was clients, Ayurvedic journeys. I spoke with Kavina, and when I spoke with her, she had a Vata aggravation, which we discussed on this episode, and she had to stop her intense workouts. She was doing like a CrossFit type workout because they were really aggravating her Vata. So that was a sample of how exercise could really be a bad thing for your dosha. But we really have to tune into our body and see what's best for it, right? Rather than saying, this is what I planned or this is what everyone else is doing. And I think in particular for women, because we have our monthly cycle and our body goes through a lot of changes throughout the month. So we cannot expect to do intense workouts week in, week out. And as someone who worked out intensely before, I would actually argue now that it's not good for anyone's health to overexert their body on a regular basis. Now, for some people, tuning in or listening into their body's needs might be very challenging, especially if you're just starting your healing journey. So I'm going to give advice for each dosha type here in regards to what exercise is best. So I'm going to start out with if you have a high kapha constitution. This is the person who needs to move more, move daily, get the blood and the lymph circulating, creating heat in the body and boosting your immune system. Now, it can be challenging for a kapha person to get motivated. So this is where it's really important to make a workout date with a friend, book a class in advance, or get a trainer if you can afford one. Put something in place that you can't back out of last minute. You want to do an activity that gets your heart rate up, rather than just being in a steady state of training. So rather than just, walking at one steady pace, you really need to do something that's more interval training. That's really the best for kapha. So kapha has amazing endurance once they get going. So once they're stimulated and get going, they can go forever. But if the training is at that steady state, this can result in a slowing down throughout the training, and therefore you're not getting your heart rate up high enough. So this is where, as I said, intervals are great. Whether you're walking, biking, swimming, or on a machine, here's what I recommend. Do 1 minute fast, and then 4 minutes at that steady state. Now, I don't recommend going to the point where you're gasping for air or putting your body under too much strain. So use your breath as a guide. So when you're doing your 1 minute interval, take it to the point where you can no longer breathe through your nose. And then once you get to that point where you start breathing out your mouth, back off. So back off then and do that 4 minute steady state. Once your breath returns to normal, then repeat the process. So as you get more fit, your body will recover a lot faster. So you may not need the 4 minutes, then it may be 3 minutes or 2 minutes. However long it takes you to recover, Take that time, and then once you're breathing comfortably out your nose again, once you can hold a full conversation, then repeat the interval process. And do that for about 15 to 20 minutes. Now, of course, start your workout with a steady warm-up and a cool down. But in the middle, do those intervals. And again, it could be if you're outside, walking, walk briskly for a minute, or if you're biking, you bike fast for a minute, or swimming, and so on. It can be applied to anything. But coffee, you definitely need to be moving daily, doing a variety of activities, get that blood circulation, creating that heat. It's really good for you. Then for a person with a high Pitta constitution, there's a tendency to generally love competition. And this usually comes out during exercise, where you're competing with everyone else at the gym or in the class, even if they're not aware there's a competition. For Pitta, there is. So the biggest lesson for Pitta is moderation, and to not go beyond the point where you can no longer breathe through your nose. And remembering that every workout doesn't have to be intense. In fact, it could be really best for Pitta to take some time out and do restorative yoga or yin yoga or slow yoga flow class, and doing the more intense exercise every other day. And I don't even like to use the word intense here with Pitta, because Pitta tends to be intense as it is. So again, Pitta, remembering moderation is really key for you, and backing off, and experiment with it and see how good you feel when you take an off day after your workout day and give your body and your muscles time to recover. You'll notice that your performance will be better on those on days. So for Pitta, just know your tendency is to push too hard. So I really recommend backing off. And, if you're thinking, that would never work, just experiment, try it and test it in your own body and see. Because I do think the body always performs better when you have time to rest and recover from those effort days. So moderation. Try not go all out, definitely not to the point where you're gasping for air. I highly recommend for everyone that they use that monitor of nose breathing. If you can no longer breathe out your nose, then it's time to back off a little. Because when you start breathing out your mouth, your body's a little bit under stress. Your body could go into stress mode. So try keep it where you're just breathing through your nose. That is best. Okay. Now, finally, high Vata constitution. So in this case, Vatas need to have awareness of not overexerting themselves and running out of energy. Vata people tend to have variable energy levels as it is, and lower endurance levels. So therefore, short bouts of fitness are best, and making sure that you don't hit the wall. So you've done so much, you hit the wall, and now you need an afternoon on the couch just to recover. That's really not a good sign. So take gentle classes, Tai Chi, yoga, dancing, less intense classes, less intense activities if you're at the gym. And what's really good for Vata is a class that has a lot of alignment instructions, or you have a trainer who's telling you exactly what to do and structuring a format for you. Because as we know, Vata tends to be more in the mind, more air and space. So if you're doing weights, which are excellent for Vata, they build up that bone density, really, really good for Vata. And it's taking you into your body. Or like I said, you're doing a class where there's a lot of alignment instructions, like a yoga class where they're really focused on alignment, an Iyengar class, or like Pilates where there's a lot of instructions, because you don't have time to go off on those thoughts. You really have to focus on your body, and it's bringing you into your body, and it's very grounding. So that is really best. And like I mentioned, the weights are wonderful. Not only they're grounding, but they build up the bone density, which is really important. So I do have a download from a previous podcast episode. It's going all the way back to podcast episode number 14. But if you want to see the download I have where I recommend exercises for the doshas, just go to my website, click on the resources, and in the drop down menu, it's under freebies, and I'll put a link to that anyway in the show notes as well. So that just has some suggestions of what I recommend for each constitution and their exercise choices. Okay, so final question here is from Jessica. And Jessica says, what to do when your partner doesn't buy into the Ayurvedic lifestyle? Great question, Jessica. And I know this comes up regularly when I talk to clients. And my answer is do nothing. People really don't react well to being told what to do, especially when they haven't asked for advice. And you have to wait until they're really ready, or they ask for advice or help, or when they're curious. In the meantime, Jessica, I would be the best advertisement you could be for Ayurvedic lifestyle, and that will speak volumes. Going back to that episode I did with the clients' Ayurvedic journeys, that was number 110. Each of them mentioned in that episode how people around them commented on what was different about them. Now, nothing had changed, but the people around them noticed their energy was different. There was a calmness about them. Something had shifted for the positive. And so I believe that is the best way that you can promote the benefits of Ayurveda. Just really take care of yourself and let the results do the talking for you. Now, of course, I am aware, Jessica, that problems may arise if you're living with somebody, because when you're adjusting your timing, maybe the timing you're getting up or going to bed, this can affect other people in your household. So that requires a conversation and explaining to the people in your house that you're on this path, you're taking care of your health so that you can be and feel your best, and just asking them to support you on that journey, and maybe getting their input on how, as a family, that you can adjust your evening so that you can be in bed at a certain time or get up at a certain time. So I think that does require a conversation for the people in your house to understand how important this is to you, and that you will feel better and be better just if they support you through this. That would be great. And then, of course, cooking can also create stress if a person in the family is trying to change their diet and so on. But I really say here to also keep it simple and stick to the soul food diet, which is good for everybody, seasonal, organic, unprocessed, and local. So ideally, you're cooking that for everybody anyway. And then whatever spices or herbs or other additions, maybe if the rest of the family are eating meat and you want to have tofu or something, or another, vegan protein, and you don't want to eat meat, well, then just cook them separate and then add them to your serving. So with the spices and herbs, that's easy. You just cook them off in another pan in a little ghee or oil and add them to your meal at the end. I think that's the best way to deal with that. And again, if you're the cook in the family, that you're not cooking several dishes, because that's going to lead to stress. And I also don't think long term that it's going to be something that's sustainable. Because what you want to do is, when you're making adjustments to your lifestyle, you want to make it as simple as possible. And when I'm talking to clients, I'm asking them, how many children do you have? What's your schedule like? What time do you get up? What time do the kids get up? What time do you leave the house? What time do the kids get home? I'm asking them every detail so that when we're building a strategy for their life, that it's reasonable and it's something that they can implement pretty easy and not cause extra stress. And this is what's important. So what I would recommend, Jessica, is that, like I said, be the advertisement for Ayurveda and say nothing. Just, do what you want to do. And if the changes affect those other people living in the house, will then have a conversation, explain to them how important this is to you and that you would like it if they supported you. And then when it comes to food, hopefully it is possible to cook dishes for the whole family and then cook your herbs and spices off another pan and just add them to your serving at the end. And again, just trying to keep it as simple as possible, because we don't want to add stress. And it always reminds me when Eckhart Tolle says that stress is created when we want a situation to be something that it's not. So that's really important. Just doing your best given the circumstances you're in. And hopefully then in time, maybe your partner may become curious at some point. But also, I think it's important just to let go of needing them to do what you're doing and being okay with that, that you're taking this journey and maybe others are not interested, because if you're going to be worried about it, or if you want someone to come along and they're not playing ball, well, then that's going to cause huge aggravation and stress for you. So I guess in general, what I would say is do your inner work of letting go hear of any expectations for anyone else to follow you on this journey, and just do it for yourself. And again, that calm energy and good vibes that come with following an Ayurvedic lifestyle will be the best advertisement and speak volumes. So Jessica, I hope that helps, but it was a really good question because I know that comes up again and again. Okay, so that's all the questions, and thank you so much for tuning in. If you think this episode would help others, please share it. And of course, again, just to mention, for all those programs coming up, I have the Digestive Reset Cleanse and the Reset, Restore, Renew program starting January 24th, and the Daily Habits course, the group course, starting February 21st. If those dates don't suit you, they can be taken privately at any time. So don't worry, just visit my website, elementshealingandwellbeing.com, or just go over to the show notes and I'll have all the links that I mentioned in the episode right there. But I just want to finish up with thanking you for your support. And I love to see you supporting each other in the Facebook group. It's fantastic. And I love to get your emails and your comments on social media. I really appreciate it. And I love doing this podcast. I'm going to continue doing it. So I just wanted to say thank you for supporting me and for tuning in and listening. And I want to wish you all a very happy and healthy new year and beyond. So until next time, take good care of yourself, be well, and ciao for now.